I think there are a number of areas within the Gambling Control Act that can benefit from some strengthening, which I believe the Commission has actually begun to promulgate regulations to strengthen those areas.
Okay, any other additional questions at this time? Seeing none, let's move on to Tiffany Conklin, with member of California Gambling Control Commission, for your presentation.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members. Tiffany Conklin, Commissioner with the California Gambling Control Commission. With me today is Anna Carr, Deputy Director, Legislation and Regulatory Affairs. I will begin with a very brief overview of the history of the card room gaming in California, followed by an overview of the history of the Commission and the Commission's current roles and responsibilities. When the Gambling Control Act became effective in 1998, it established the current bifurcated system of regulation and enforcement based on the New Jersey gaming model. This act established the Commission as the regulatory and adjudicatory agency and the Bureau of Gambling Control as the enforcement agency. The Gambling Control Act also provides local governments with regulatory jurisdiction. Local governments are authorized to enact more stringent controls and to impose any local tax or license fee that is not inconsistent with the Act. The Act also authorizes local jurisdictions to regulate matters that include the location of gaming, the hours of operation, the number of tables, and the wagering limits in permissible games conducted on those premises. Existing law places a moratorium on the expansion of gambling within card rooms and on new licenses for a gambling establishment. The moratorium on card room gambling expansion and new licenses was initially set to expire in 2001. Several bills have extended the moratorium, and the current sunset date is now 2020. While there is a moratorium in place, the moratorium does not prohibit prospective investors from buying into an existing card room. Purchase of a card room is not prohibited if the sale and purchase are approved by the Commission and the new owners obtain a license. The Commission was created in 1998 as a full-time, independent agency with quasi-judicial powers through the Gambling Control Act. The Commission did not become operative until August 29, 2000. Under the Gambling Control Act, commissioners are appointed by the governor, subject to confirmation by the Senate. The Commission consists of 5 members with diverse experience, including a member who is a CPA or has experience in gaming, banking, and finance, a member who is an attorney and member of the State Bar of California with regulatory law experience. 1 member is required to have background in law enforcement and criminal investigation. 1 member is required to have a background in business with at least 5 years of business experience or 5 years of government experience, and 1 member is required to be a member of the public at large. Currently, only the public at large position is vacant. Commissioners are subject to pre-employment and post-employment restrictions. Persons are not eligible for appointment if, within 2 years prior to appointment, the person was employed by or derived substantial income from any gambling establishment. Commissioners and other staff of the Commission are also restricted from providing representation to another for compensation before the Commission for a period of 3 years after leaving office or terminating employment at the Commission. It is also important to note that commissioners are prohibited from having any outside business, vocation, or employment while being appointed. The Governor's Reorganization and Plan 2 of 2012, known as GRP2, became operative on July 1, 2013. GRP2 consolidated the support, auditing, and compliance functions of the Commission and transferred these duties to the Bureau of Gambling Control within the Department of Justice. Under GRP2, the Commission continues to have jurisdiction over licensing, policies, regulations, criteria, and standards pertaining to gaming, while the Bureau continues to perform enforcement and investigatory functions as they outlined. The Commission was able to implement GRP2 on schedule and has adopted comprehensive regulations to address the various changes in roles and responsibilities between the Commission and the Bureau. Prior to GRP2, the Commission had 78 positions. The Commission currently consists of 35 positions and a budget of approximately $6.6 million in state operations. As it relates to the card room industry, the Commission is the regulatory body over gaming establishments and third-party providers of proposition player services, businesses that provide services in and to a gaming establishment under an agreement for services that is approved by the Bureau of Gambling Control. The Commission's main function related to the card room industry is to take reasonable actions to ensure that no ineligible, unqualified, disqualified, or unsuitable persons are associated with controlled gaming activities. The card room licensing process is quite thorough. Applicants are required to undergo a background investigation completed by the Bureau of Gambling Control. After the Bureau's investigation has been completed, applicants are placed on the Commission's agenda for considerations, generally within a month of receiving the completed investigation from the Bureau. Because I will always be a legislative staffer, we have prepared and made available a licensing application flowchart to explain each step in the legislative licensing process, and it looks very similar to the how a bill becomes a law you all have in your offices. In addition, the Commission also has limited regulatory responsibilities related to the Remote Color Bingo program. The Department of Justice also has responsibilities to this program and did touch upon that in their presentation. Next, I will present an overview of the Commission's responsibilities related to tribal gaming. It is important to note that consistent with the state's compacts, Indian tribes and their tribal gaming agencies are the primary regulators of Indian gaming. The Commission's responsibilities are limited to what is authorized under the compacts and state law, and generally limited to compact compliance. The Commission's primary responsibilities related to tribal gaming include making suitability determinations for tribal key employees, vendors, and financial sources, serving as the trustee for the Indian Gaming Revenue Sharing Trust Fund, known as the RSTF, serving as the administrator of the Indian Gaming Special Distribution Fund, known as the SDF, conducting license draws to issue licenses for gaming devices, registering gaming manufacturers and distributors, providing consultation to the state controller on the methodology used to allocate SDF grant appropriations, providing consultation to the Department of Justice to calculate the total revenue in the SDF each year, and developing regulations related to the compacts in coordination with the Tribal State Association. Thank you again for inviting me here today. I welcome any questions you may have and have brought with me a brochure that outlines what was included in my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions? Mr. John Sawyer.
Ms. Conklin, actually, I'm glad that we have someone that's a former staffer that understands how we think. And it sounds like you have a pretty detailed, and I'd like to see the chart, pretty detailed chart on the work that you do. And you mentioned you have a pretty rigorous operation, I guess, as trying to define suitability of whether or not someone can participate in any gaming interest. And I just want to know, as we move forward with iPoker, as far as the question of suitability, even just the Gaming Commission or the state being able to handle that, I might add, and if you need additional resources, is that something you would feel comfortable being someone on both sides? Have seen how we work on both sides? Would you be able to handle something like iPoker and looking at suitability?
I'll let Anna Carr go into the details of what the resources would be like, because I would hate to undersell us, and I'm here filling in for our chair today, so I don't know particularly about our resources, but I'm guessing we would take them if they were offered. And then, as the person who, one of the individuals, one of the commissioners that votes in favor of licenses
Correct.
that come before us, I am more than comfortable knowing that if we are given the appropriate resources and the backgrounds that come back from the Bureau of Gambling Control, that we would be able to make those determinations without problem.
Thank you. That'd be great. You want to answer?
Good afternoon, Anna Carr with the Commission. The Commission has 35 positions. If our responsibilities were increased as a result of internet poker, we would anticipate potentially needing some additional staff that would depend upon the legislation, but we would look forward to having a regulatory role. If legislation was similar to the Gambling Control Act in its responsibilities and suitability determinations, that would make implementation easier, I believe, for the Commission as well as for the Bureau.
Okay, and maybe you can talk with members of this committee or maybe even the chair about what you would need in any type of legislation so that we want you to be successful at it, not just to give you something, make a responsibility that you may not be able to handle. The most important thing is for you to be able to handle it. If there's any legislation or any ideas you need to make that a stronger, viable legislation that'll make you very successful at doing that, I would implore that you let members of this committee and the chair know.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on the suitability question there. So, as was pointed out earlier in the question in respect to bifurcated regulatory scheme, we've got both the folks that do the investigation and present the case as to whether a potential licensee is suitable, and then we have the commissioners, or kind of the ultimate up or down on suitability, with pretty strict standards, it sounds like.
That's correct. That's how it works, and I think it works quite well because I believe that it also gives the applicant the necessary feeling that there is that division of powers to ensure that when we are making a determination, it is based, that there has been that separation of powers present that allows for them to present their side of the story if they feel that something that was uncovered by the Bureau paints them in a negative light, if there had been, additional information that wasn't provided. That I do believe that system works the best to preserve that due process.
Okay, could you talk a little bit about, I know California card clubs have different layers of regulation at both the local and the state level, and could you talk a little bit about that and what roles state versus local government play?
Sure, I will go in just briefly and then let Ms. Carr follow up. But local jurisdiction, and that's probably a little bit of the problem. I mean, I love local control, don't get me wrong. But it does vary from local, from one city to the other. So where you may have very stringent controls in a city like San Jose, that was highlighted by Special Agent Diwali, other jurisdictions don't even know what a gambling hall is or what it looks like. So that really they may do just the bare minimum when it comes to time, place, and manner restrictions, or they may be very involved in the everyday operation like the city of San Jose is, where they have oversight over that card room. And then we try to come in and, I don't want to say fill in the holes, but we do provide a level of oversight that is consistent and applied to all of the 89 card rooms in the state. We are currently working on a number of regulations that Anna can go into, and that just we do take into consideration that there are different size card rooms and that we cannot do one size fits all for maybe a 10-table card room as opposed to one of our larger card rooms down in Southern California that could have 250 tables. So we do try to take that into account when we're promulgating our regulations.
Anna Carr, we are working on several sets of regulations. We're very active in regulations, and we reach out to our stakeholders regularly to have regulation workshops and roundtable meetings. This book that we have with the Gambling Control Act and regulations, about half of this includes commission regulations related to card rooms, so it is very extensive. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but we are working on regulations related to third-party contracts. We just finished regs on accounting and financial reporting requirements. We have regulations related to third-party plain books and electronic plain books. We have third-party registrations and licenses that we're working on to revamp the process and amend existing regulations. We have regulations related to the approval of transactions. And we also have regulations that we're working on right now related to the responsible gambling program to update and amend that program.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Can you please, the commission is comprised of 5 individuals. What's the commission composition?
There are 5 slots, only 4 are currently filled.
And so you have a public at large?
Yes, that is the vacant position at this time.
And so do we have any means of, do we know that it's being filled or there's applicants? And these are full-time positions.
They are full-time positions, and
How are they compensated?
They're compensated through the which fund? I can never remember which
We're
fund.
funded by the Special Distribution Fund and the Gambling Control Fund, and it's based on workload.
So they get compensated based on workload?
No.
No, the total funding for the commission, the split between the two funds is based on workload, but the commission is funded by two special funds, the Indian Gaming Special Distribution Fund and the Gambling Control Fund for state operations.
So individuals are full-time, 5 members, and compensated at what rate?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I can tell you my after-tax pay, but I don't. It's statutory, and I believe it's $132, maybe $133 a year, and we are prohibited from any outside employment.
Did you say?
The chairman makes fun of other members that go on 20.
Oh, thousands a year. Okay.
Yes. And to your other question, the governor is responsible. And I think there's restrictions from coming out of the legislature.
Okay. How often does the board meet?
We actually met, I think I had that number totally. We met 55 times in 2014. So we meet not only for our regularly licensed scheduled meetings, which are 2 times a month, but we also meet for evidentiary hearings, regulatory meetings, the workshops that she mentioned, as well as our GPAC meetings. So
And
about
the board is also governed under the Brown Act?
We do the Brown Act, but we also have the
Bagley-Keene?
Bagley-Keene. Yes, we're also subject to the Bagley-Keene open meeting rules.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions at this time? Seeing no additional questions, thank you for your testimony. And we will move on to Ron Yeager with the United Auburn Indian Community Tribal Gaming Commission. Please make your presentation, sir.
Good afternoon, chairs, members of the Assembly and Senate GO. My name is Ron Jager. I'm the tribal chairperson for the Tribal Gaming Agency for the United Auburn Indian Community, which owns and operates the Thunder Valley Resort and Casino, which is not too far from here up the road, and we're happy to take you up there anytime. I was asked to explain how tribal casinos are regulated, and I'm glad that you're asking that question because tribal casinos are the best regulated gambling businesses in the state of California. Tribal casinos are regulated by 3 different agencies, but the primary agency is the Tribal Gaming Agency. We are an independent agency, and we are on site at the casino. And we are dedicated to complying with the regulatory and Gaming Compact and the Federal Indian Gaming Regulatory Act. Our role, is simply put, is to protect and enhance the integrity of the gaming at Thunder Valley Casino for both the consumer and the tribe. We are not subject to civil service. We are able to hire the best and most experienced auditors and gaming regulators throughout the country. I want to share a few of the highlights as to why we are heavily regulated and are dedicated to that mission. We do a background check on every employee at Thunder Valley, whether they are parking your car, whether they're cleaning your hotel room, or handling an extensive amount of cash that flows through a gaming facility. Prior history of criminal behavior and or dishonesty is certainly a disqualifying perspective for an employee at Thunder Valley. Second, tribal casinos are governed by what is known as the minimum internal control standards for gaming operations. We call them the MICs. They are offered by the National Indian Gaming Commission and are adopted by our tribal ordinances. They govern every aspect of casino operation, including the surveillance system, cash processing, and compliance with federal money laundering regulations. The MICs are further elaborated into our system of internal controls, and we call that the SIX. The SIX, which specifies in great detail what every employee at Thunder Valley must do to make sure we are in compliance with the MICs, the system of internal controls. Third, no electronic device, whether it's a slot machine, electronic table, or a card shuffler, is put to use on the Thunder Valley floor until it has been tested by our technical compliance staff. And no electronic gaming device is even shipped to Thunder Valley until the integrity of the software has been tested, approved, and certified by an independent or government gaming test laboratory. Finally, audit. Audit, audit, audit. I'm talking about both financial audits and performance audits. This is done through the Tribal Gaming Agency audits, independent outside auditors, internal casino auditors, where every department of the casino is reviewed for compliance. The State Gaming Agency, as you've heard here today, also audits compliance with the mix. And the NIGC, the National Indian Gaming Commission, may also audit the mix. As you can see, there are multiple levels of internal, external, and governmental auditors inspecting compliance with these professional gaming standards. Now, in terms of structure, as far as the Tribal Gaming Agency, that may vary as to how they're organized from gaming tribes throughout the state. But at Thunder Valley, with the United Auburn Tribe, our TGA is composed of 5 commissioners appointed by the tribe for staggered 3-year terms. Our executive director, who reports to the commission, oversees all of our regulatory departments, including the licensing department, and he is a manager with 30 years of law enforcement investigative experience. Our regulatory compliance department is led by a director with 10 years of casino internal auditing experience, and our technical compliance department is led by a manager with 6 years of slot technical experience. As I have noted, the TGA licensed each of 2,417 casino employees. This is required by the suitability standards in our tribal law and by the terms of our state compact and with federal law. A license is issued following the background investigation and after finding that the suitability standard has been met, in which we check personal references, previous employment, credit checks, a criminal history check via fingerprints on live scan through the Federal Department of Justice is also completed on each applicant. The TGA must submit all of these determinations of suitability to the NIGC, the National Indian Gaming Commission, which reviews every applicant and may object to the potential employee based on federal standards. The state compact also requires the TGA to notify the state of any intent to license a key employee, and those are employees with significant influence within the casino operation. We forward a state suitability application to the Bureau for its investigation and recommendation to the California Gaming Control Commission, which then determines whether the individual is suitable under state law standards. The Tribal Gaming Agency provides the California Gaming Control Commission monthly with current list of key and non-key employees licensed by the TGA. The TGA currently maintains active files on 2,417 gaming licenses. 294 of these are key employees, 2,123 are non-key employees. Regulators from the NIGC and the Bureau conduct site visits to review licensing files at the TGA to make sure that we are complying with the federal requirements and the state compact. The TGA may suspend an employee if the individual no longer meets the required suitability standards. Licensees have a duty, once they're licensed, to notify the TGA at any time of any material changes, such as an arrest or a change of address, or etc., so that we are current with their situation. Also, certain actions within this casino, such as theft, dishonesty, may lead to suspension and revocation of a gaming license. Employees have a right to contest a license revocation at a hearing conducted by the TGA commissioners. The TGA must provide the NIGC with a notice of all licenses and suspensions and revocations. The TGA also licensed all vendors for Class 3 gaming resources in the amount of $25,000 or more in a 12-month period. The TGA currently has 48 licensed vendors. I have mentioned the minimum internal control standards. The TGA ensures that the mix, which are developed by NIGC and acquired and required by tribal law and state regulations, are up to date. To ensure that the casino complies with these standards, there is continuous auditing by TGA auditors, independent outside auditors, and internal casino auditors. The State Gaming Agency and the NIGC also audit compliance with our control standards. As you can see, there are multiple internal, external, and governmental auditors inspecting compliance with professional gaming standards. In addition, the TGA reviews and approves our system of internal controls, which is even more stringent and detailed than the mix in many instances. Here's an example of one of the control relating to slot machine jackpots. The minimum internal control standard for large jackpots requires verification that the machine was not manipulated by the player. To carry out this standard for a jackpot of more than $100,000, the system of control requires 6 Thunder Valley employees to be involved: the director of slot operations, the casino shift manager, the slot shift manager, a cage cashier, a slot technician, and a slot ambassador. For payouts, well, you could, and that takes a while to do, but in most cases, the patrons are not complaining when they're waiting for their $100,000 payout. The mix and the system controls are constantly audited for compliance. The TGA is also responsible for implementing any financial audits performed by an independent outside auditors and forwards those audits to the NIGC within the required time frame. If you are at Thunder Valley, you will notice that all employees wear identification badges issued by the TGA in plain view on their upper torso while on the clock or in restricted areas. These badges enable the TGA agents to readily identify the person and determine the validity of his or her license. One of the requirements of the state compact is to maintain a surveillance system consistent with industry standards for the size and type of gaming operation. At Thunder Valley, we have more than 1,800 cameras. This state-of-the-art system is very useful in providing for security of our guests and employees and for detecting criminal activity. As an example, just last Sunday, our surveillance department spotted a guest who was cheating at a card table. In this particular case, the individual was post-betting, which means that he was placing a bet of additional chips after the cards had been dealt. And this individual was banned from the casino and was subject to arrest for trespassing if he returns. The cameras are high-resolution recording devices that cover the gaming floor, the back of the house, the bars, the ATMs, and the parking lots. Surveillance agents with extensive training on gaming rules watch the play of games. And I might add, it takes a year for a new employee at Thunder Valley who wants to be a surveillance agent. It takes a year of training and a passing of final exams in order to have that title as a surveillance agent. The cameras allow us to help state the federal law enforcement and detect and prosecute crimes, including the credit card theft and the passing of counterfeit bills. For instance, one case at Thunder Valley Casino, and security and surveillance staff provided information that led to the identification of an identity theft ring and arrest of a number of suspects. Local law enforcement and the U.S. Secret Service identified hundreds of victims of this ATM credit card fraud scam in Northern California and identified the criminal organization as having national and international connections. The surveillance also ensures that the alcohol and beverage service complies with the rules and regulation on alcohol service. That's required in the federal regs, and it's all required in the state compacts. The ABC criteria for alcohol is complied with at Thunder Valley as well. As I've noted, our technical staff tests all gaming devices prior to play by any patron at Thunder Valley, directly oversees the transportation of slot machines from the TGA to the gaming slot floor. The software, hardware, equipment for any device will have already been tested by an independent lab to ensure that it operates in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendations. In addition, the TGA regulates the transportation of these gaming devices per our agreement with the state. We issue transportation permits, make the necessary shipment notifications, including a 10-day notice to the Placer County Sheriff's Office and a 7-day notice to the California Bureau of Gambling Control. We also have an inspector for professional standards who directs and coordinates any property investigations to ensure that the public's trust in the gaming operation. These professional standards investigations seek and identify to remove dishonest elements within the gaming facility. For instance, we have a steady stream of counterfeit bills that we are able to filter out and remove from circulation. These bill acceptors on our slot machines and the bill counters in our cage can detect a counterfeit bill and reject it. Since January 1 of this year, our casino has confiscated more than $10,000 in counterfeit currency. Each time these bills are discovered, our security department sends an incident report and the counterfeit money to the Secret Service. And some of these investigations have resulted in arrests made by local and federal law enforcement officials. The TGA also resolves patron disputes that may arise as a result of play or operation of a Class III game. These gaming disputes were not otherwise resolved informally by casino management. They then have the opportunity to come before the commission. And after our TGA staff investigates the details, the commission issues a written determination resolving this dispute, which is provided to the patron, and their decision to revoke, rescind, suspend, revoke a license is provided in 5 working days from the date of the hearing in writing. Under the terms of the state compact dealing with public safety, the TGA, of course, licensed the facility as meeting tribal, federal, and state standards, which include meeting the state and county's uniform building and safety codes. The TGA reviews and approves annually an emergency plan, evacuation plan, developed by Thunder Valley to address emergencies such as fires, natural disasters, bomb threats, and hazardous spills or toxic exposure, which is submitted and reviewed by the Bureau of Gambling Control. We also certify that the provisions for obtaining emergency assistance for patrons, employees, and other persons while in the gaming facility. This is provided by security staff and by the adjacent fire station and funded by the tribe. At the fire station, the tribe funds a total of 7 paramedic positions, which results in a minimum of 2 paramedics on duty every day. This, in addition to 3 Thunder Valley EMTs staffed at all 3 shifts, bring a total available number of paramedics and EMTs available to respond to a medical emergency at the casino. We'll have 5 people at any one time. As you can see, the primary philosophy of regulating Thunder Valley Casino is to prevent problems from ever happening. We do this by having such strict operational standards that any individual tempted by working or playing in a cash-rich environment never gets a chance to cheat the system. We audit those systems, and then we audit them again. To the extent we use gaming agency staff with law enforcement backgrounds helps us to stop potential bad actors from ever working at Thunder Valley and to investigate anyone on the inside or outside who thinks they can work a scam on the casino operation. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I'm happy to try to answer any of the questions that you might have. Thank you.